Hello there, and welcome to the Hope It Helps podcast. I'm Derek Evans, your host, and today is about money, and specifically how not to stress about money. It may sound crazy. If it does sound crazy, then you're the exact person who I created this post for and who I created this podcast for. I've been a financial talk show host for over 10 years now. I've seen a lot. I've talked to a lot of people. I've watched a lot of people go through a lot of things. In the realm, that we're talking about here, money, stress, finances. However, this recent study that was done by the American Psychological Association, it's called Stress in America, and their results for 2014 were pretty crazy. It says 72% of adults reported being stressed about money. That's almost 3 out of every 4 people that you see walking around, adults, that admit willingly that they're stressed about money. 22% of those people say they experience extreme stress about money. I mean, I've seen people have panic attacks. We've seen people kill themselves as a result of having stress about money. Obviously, this is a major problem. So the survey also found kind of an interesting sidebar that stress in general was worse for women than it is for men. So they reported that 51% of women said they have laid awake at night unable to sleep because of stress in the past month, compared to just 32% of men. I don't know how important that is, but I thought it was worth noting in case you're a woman that you're potentially more prone to this, and it may be more extreme for you than it is for guys out there. Personally, I'm pretty blown away by this. It feels like, it seems as if we're torturing ourselves. Now, people do that type of stuff all the time. We know about cutters. We know that there are people who enjoy pain. But we're just talking about money here. We're not talking about physical pain or physical torture. We're talking about mental torture. Money is just a concept. Conceptual things like money or time or God, these are only as valid and real as we allow them to be. So if money is only as valuable as you allow it to be. Sure, money has value, but some people it has more value and other people it has less. In other words, $20 to you means something different than $20 to me. It means something different than the next person $20 does. So you see, it's conceptual. Even though we can all buy the same stuff for the same $20, that value of money to us each individually is different. So we have to dig a little bit deeper here to get to the bottom of this if we're going to find a solution. And typically, when we're talking about conceptual things, which has to do with a lot of times fear, or in this case, stress, which are very closely associated, reality is going to be the solution. And I'll kind of explain to you how we can get to that point. So first of all, why do we stress about money? Let's dig all the way down to that and be really honest with ourselves. Why do we stress about money? It's the unknown. The unknown is why we stress about money. The unknown is why we stress about anything, frankly. The unknown in this case is in the future. And it's fear. It's fear that's causing this stress. We know they're attached a lot of times, fear and stress, but in this particular case, the unknown is in the future. And that means that it's fear. Now, in this particular situation, the unknown future, which seems to be something we can't touch, we can't grasp it, we can't understand it, we can't trust it. However, we do understand it a little bit, because today is the future of yesterday. And if you were worrying about money yesterday, did that help you today? Did your worst nightmares come true? Did the things that you were worried about actually end up happening? And once you kind of realize that, wow, I was just as worried yesterday about money, and nothing happened. I'm still living in my same house. I still have my same job, or whatever the circumstance is. It didn't change. And how many days has that happened? So this is kind of the first realization, is that what we're worrying about is something that certainly isn't happening on a regular basis, and in fact is quite unlikely. It's very unlikely. So we do have some experience fearing the unknown and then living the future later. Of course, when we accept the fact that we've many times experienced that our fears did in fact not come true, in fact almost all the time our worst fears do not come true, then we have something to lean on. We have a past experience that if we hit a bump in the road, we know, hey, this will work out. It will be okay. I have nothing to worry about. And that is sort of the mantra I use. If I catch myself experiencing anxiety, whether it's before a show or before a big speaking engagement, the thing that I say to myself over and over is, I have nothing to fear. I have nothing to worry about. There is nothing to fear. There is nothing to worry about. So let's remember this. And we can start by drilling down with this question. What is your worst fear about money? Get to the core of the concerns, because for most of us, we just fear being homeless. We think, well, gosh, if I don't have a job, then I can't pay my bills, and they'll take away my car, then I'll be on the streets. Now, if it's not that extreme, then maybe you just fear being poor. Maybe you, like me, you grew up poor, and you don't want to be poor. And that was my motivation initially for wanting to get into business and make money right away, was that I feared being poor. I experienced being poor and I didn't like it. And today, as an adult, that might mean, not having enough money to eat at the fancy restaurants you want every night, or wear the certain type of clothing that you want, or live in the certain neighborhood that you want. I don't think most of us really believe that we'll be on the streets. But maybe we just might worry that we'll have to live in a poor area of town. But even deep down, I think we can all agree that we don't believe we'll starve to death, which means that we'll still have life. That in itself is a huge realization. We're not going to starve to death. You're going to live. And at a certain point in a spiritual journey, when you realize that just being is enough, this world is so amazing that if I can just be here, then it's an incredible gift. And so when you can realize that about money, no matter what happens, you're gonna live. You will live. And so will your children. Everyone who you're responsible for will live. That might take just one layer of the fear and anxiety off of the situation. So what are the chances that any of this will really come true? Very unlikely. And perhaps extremely unlikely. But either way, when we worry about it, what's happening is that we are not in the present moment. By not being in the present moment, we have taken ourselves out of our best self. When we're in the present moment, everything's great. If you can just realize that when you're worried about anything, you've left the present moment and gently come back to it, that in itself will make a big difference. So just realizing that alone could help. And the idea here is that there isn't one silver bullet. If you're someone who is a serial stressor, especially about money, there's no one thing that's going to fix all that. But if you can look at some of these tools and you can add them in, you can peel back those layers of worry and doubt. Another thing that is also fact is that money's everywhere. There's money in your wallet, money in your bank account, money in my wallet, money in my bank account, and everyone else that you see. Now, how much? It varies. But money is everywhere. There are jobs everywhere. This isn't the Great Depression. Even in the recession, jobs were fine. Everyone could get jobs. And the ones who couldn't were able to get unemployment. The government took care of them. So it's not a secret. Money's everywhere. We all know how to make money. And there's literally endless amounts of it in every direction. So that doesn't mean that we'll always be able to do what we love or fulfill our passion and our dreams while simultaneously making money, but it means that we know where to get money if we need to. So if this is the real worst case scenario, then there truly is nothing to fear. Our worst case, ultimately, is just having to take a detour on our path or our career, to do some hard work, make ends meet until we figure something else out. That's the worst thing that could happen. If you lost your job tomorrow, that's the worst thing that could happen. And it would all work out. So, now we can realize that there really isn't anything to worry about. When we get to the core reality of the situation, there really isn't anything to worry about. So, if you can accept that, as truth, you'll see a big difference. But we have to change the thought process. We have to tell ourselves the truth. We have to accept that nothing terrible is going to happen. Even in a worst case scenario, everything will be all right. So let's say it out loud. There is nothing to be afraid of. I have nothing to fear. We also have to be mindful of our priorities. And now that we've accepted the fact that money is not hard to come by, which is sort of what the thought is, well, if I lose this job, then I'll have nothing. But you're not just going to sit around jobless. You're going to find something. You're going to figure it out if you had to. If your business doesn't work out, you'll figure something out. So we know that we can find money one way or the other. And since we've been able to accept that and realize that, there are many other things in our lives that will rise above money on what I call the totem pole of our attention. And that's a really, really good thing when you can stop spending so much time worrying about money and you can devote that time to something you love, like your friends, your family. I want to make note of one thing with regard to this, because while people say, oh, well, it's easy for people to say things like this who are okay or who have lots of money and things like that. Listen, the people who have the most money are just as worrisome about it as the people who have the least. There's a sweet spot. And striving to have a decent income is something that I think everyone wants. But if we go too far, it could actually make things worse. And I've experienced that personally. When we can make a decent living and have everything we need in the material realm, which is, hey, shelter, in a place that it's okay. It doesn't have to be great. We can just have a car that works. Simple stuff. We can allow our attention to flow toward other things. The things I mentioned before: family, friends, creative outlets, hobbies. The biggest cause of financial stress, in my experience as a financial talk show host, is getting over obligated. And what that means is having too many loans, having too many payments that you have to make every month. People get in that situation by buying too many cars or buying too expensive cars, buying too many homes or too expensive of a home, or taking out too many loans for education. See, it's owing money that is the major cause of financial stress from what I've seen. Think about it this way. If you're debt-free, you're probably one of the 1 in 4 adults who don't stress about money. So I think the key is to under-obligate yourself. Get an inexpensive car, get a house you can easily afford, and work to pay off your school loans as you go. I really don't believe in school loans. That's a whole nother podcast. So if you do like this particular podcast, you should check out the article on wealth consciousness. And it's on hopeithelps.org. And it's entitled "Wealth Consciousness is Not About Money." And the big takeaway that I wanted you to be able to get today, although there's 4 or 5 things I've given you that can hopefully peel some of those layers back and the stress about money, is that no matter what happens, everything will be okay. You will figure it out. There is nothing that's permanent in this world. The way that you're making money today will be different tomorrow. And if the universe delivers you some unexpected news, it's okay. You're going to be okay. However, spending time worrying about it isn't going to do any good, and we all know that. So look for the tools that will help you. I've given you the tools today that help me, but maybe those won't work as well for you. Maybe you need to take the time to go and figure out, what are the things that I can think about or that I can do that take me away from thinking about and stressing about money. It could be totally different things for you than anyone else in the world. And that's what part of a spiritual journey is about. It's about finding the things that work for you. All the things that I write about and all the things that I talk about are just the things that work for me. They don't necessarily translate to everyone. But if you can understand that we're all on a different path. We're all experiencing a different journey. And if you can take that to heart and know that every time you encounter something, you might be able to find some places where there's good information that helps you come to the right solution, but there's no silver bullet in any of this. And you'll have to do some of that work yourself. So look for those moments. When you notice, if you're a serial stressor about money, look for those moments. When you aren't stressed about money, what are you doing? What's happening? What are you thinking about? And try to put more of that in your life. Happy meditating. I really hope this helps. And I'll meet you in the calm amidst the chaos. Namaste.